Hello, and welcome to the first video on probability for grade 12 Essential Math. Today we're going to take a look at probability, what it is, and how to write it. Now, probability is a way of writing and calculating how likely an event is to happen. We use probability when we're talking about something in the future and saying what's the chance of that happening? How likely is that to happen? We can use this in terms of games. We can use this in terms of something like the weather. We also use probability when we're talking about stuff like business or insurance. And probability is a very important calculation when you're talking about something like car insurance, because the price of your car insurance or your life insurance is based upon a probability calculation. So let's start off. Here's a couple of things you need to know about probability. In order to calculate probability, what you do is you say the probability of something happening is equal to how many times do you see the thing that you want. So in other words, how many times are you expecting it to rain? Or how many times do you draw an ace? Or how many times do you roll a 6 or something like that? So what's the probability of the thing that you want happening over the total? And that's it. We very frequently write probability as a fraction, but we can also write it other different ways. So let's say that I've got the probability for a dice here. So I have a dice. This is a standard dice. It has 6 sides and the numbers 1 to 6 on it. Nice and easy. So if I roll this dice, okay, I got a 1. Hooray, I rolled terrible. So with this, I can say, what is the probability of rolling a 1? Well, this is a 1. There is one side on this dice that has a 1 on it. So I'm going to say there is one side that has a 1. Side with a 1. And there are 6 total sides. In this case, I go, hey, I rolled a 1. The chance of rolling a 1, the probability of rolling a 1 is 1 out of 6. Now, as a fraction is the most common way to write this. We can also write it other ways. So this is a fraction. But we can also write this, well, I said one already. We could write this in words. So I could write this as 1 out of 6. These mean exactly the same thing. This is more common math writing, but when you say this or when you write it out, this is often more common as well. Now, if I'm going to take a look at write this in a different way, I can also write this as a decimal. So when I write this as a decimal, what I would do is I would type that into my calculator and figure out 1 divided by 6. So I would get my probability is 0.16666 repeating. So I'm actually going to round that off to 0.17. Just 2 decimal places is all we need here. So this is it in fractions. Now I have it in decimal. To go from a fraction to a decimal, I'm just going to divide it. Now, I can also write this as a percent. Whenever you see a decimal, you can write that as a percent as well. So this here is 0.17 as a decimal. I can write this as a percent by going this would be times 100, so it would be 17% if I went straight from there. 0.17 works out to 17%. However, I have to be careful. If I'm going to multiply that by 100, I still want that to 2 decimal places, so technically I should actually write 16.67% because the actual decimal is this. I rounded too early by doing that. So to go from a fraction to a decimal, we divide, nice and easy. To go from a decimal to a percent, we times by 100, which you already know. That's something that you've known for quite a while. To go the other way, you divide by 100. Now, the tricky part with this is when I want to go from a decimal to a fraction. Going from a fraction to a decimal is easy. Going from a decimal to a fraction is a little trickier. Not super hard, but there's a little trick. So let's take a look and see how we can do this. I'm going to start with a really easy one here, 0.5. Now, I happen to know that 0.5 is 50%, and I happen to know that 50% is 1/2 of 100. So this is an easy one because I can actually just write that as 1/2. I already know that. If I don't know that, or if I have something like 0.14, I have something that's a little bit trickier to work out. Now, I could work out 0.14 is 14%. Great. I know that 14 out of 100 is 14%, so I could write that as 14 out of 100. That's a way to do that. Now, what about this one here, 0.076? If I try that trick, I'm going to end up with 7.6%, and then I'm going to end up with 7.6 over 100, which doesn't work out nicely. But here's a shortcut. If I take these digits here, so that's 0.76, I write them on top. Now, I don't have to write that first 0. If there's another number other than 0, I do have to write it, but in this case, I don't. Then I put that over a 1, and notice I have 1, 2, 3 digits after the decimal place here. Well, I put 3 zeros on the bottom. This is 76 over 1,000. So this is a trick that you can use. Notice there are 3 digits here, so there are 3 zeros on the bottom. That's a trick you can use to convert between a decimal and a fraction. That will always work. Now, this is not in the lowest terms. We can reduce that to get a simpler fraction, but we don't have to right now. This is simple enough for our purposes. So, probability is talking about how likely an event is to happen. We often use it for games and different stuff like that. And we can write it in 4 different ways. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.